What I'm about to tell you might actually shock you. Some of it actually really surprised me. I polled my Facebook friends and I got over 80 responses of what people don't like or even hate about the state of Colorado. So if you're thinking about making a move to Colorado, you might want to know some of these things before you move here. I'm going to get into my list with you right now. Hey everyone, if you don't know me, I'm Venus, a local realtor in the Denver metro area. I am so excited you're here. Welcome or welcome back. As I mentioned, I polled my Facebook friends and I asked, what do you not like about the state of Colorado or living in Colorado? And this is what they said. Oh, but keep in mind, there's something that they didn't say that I'm actually really shocked about. So stay to the end and I'll share that with you when I'm done. So I have my list. I had to print it out. As you see, it's a really long list. And some of them are actually compiled with how many times people said it. There are some things on here that more than 20 people said that they didn't like it. So that might be something to wait for. So let's just get started at the top of the list. And I'll let you know some of my opinions as I go through these. So the first one, the brown cloud. We do have a little bit of a brown cloud that settles over Denver. We're a metropolitan city. Of course it's going to happen. It's not like we're the smoggiest or the worst state in the country, but we do have a very large metropolitan area, and because of the mountains, it does settle a little bit. So keep in mind, if you have allergies, if you have some lung problems, I have pretty decent asthma. I'm on a daily inhaled steroid, but I've lived here my whole life and it doesn't really quite bother me. So just something to keep in mind. It does exist. Number 2, I've talked about this in my other videos, chapped lips, cold, dry weather. It does happen. You just gotta prepare. Use some chapstick, take care of your skin with some lotion. It's gonna happen, but I am not surprised that was on the list. It gets cold here. I don't know why I didn't move that down because we're going to talk about what people said about the weather here in a little bit. 17 people said cost of living and cost of housing. That is a big deal, especially with what's going on in the market right now with housing prices getting bid up so much. Our cost of living is high. If you are curious about my most recent information on cost of living, you can check out that video right here. Crime, that was really only mentioned once. Corruption was mentioned, but we're going to get back down into that when we get into politics. There's crime in every metropolitan city. You're not going to really necessarily be involved in it. It does happen. It exists just about everywhere. Let's see, we already talked about dry skin. It's expensive. That goes with cost of living. Somebody just said it's expensive. It is expensive. It's Denver. You know, we're one of the top 3 most moved to states, so cost of living goes up, cost of housing is going up. I think that you know, on average, we're probably pretty similar with some of the other states that are in our same kind of range as far as metropolitan area goes. Fires. So, you know, Colorado is very similar to California. We have a lot of fires every year. This last year is probably the worst in my entire living adult experience here. It was so brown that you could almost cut the air. You couldn't see the mountains. Sometimes you couldn't even see a mile in front of you. And I am quite a ways away from the mountains. I'm probably about a 30 to 45 minute drive to the mountains from where I live. And it was really bad this last summer. It was really the worst that we've ever seen it. But just keep in mind, again, with lung problems, we closed up our houses. You know, on your air conditioner in your car, it was recirculating instead of pulling from cold air. So just keep in mind that in the summer we do have fires and it does create some issues as far as lung problems. Flooding. Several years ago, we had a really major flood. It doesn't happen very often, and very often at all. In fact, I think in my lifetime, that was the biggest flood that we've ever had, and it was more north than where I live once again. We get some pretty good rainstorms here that does create some flooding, but it's not like it's going to be crazy. But what you need to keep in mind is in some areas is flood insurance, because we do have flooding. Flood insurance is pretty hefty, and if you're thinking about making a move and you're looking at certain areas, let's talk about that, because it's definitely something that you want to be mindful of before you move here. Fracking, that was only mentioned once, which I'm kind of surprised about. Fracking is where they drill down in the ground and kind of spread out and drill for oil, essentially. And it does happen. It happens quite a bit where I live, and people are very sensitive to it just because they, you know, what has been known to happen in the water system. The water's tested quite frequently, but if that bothers you, it does happen in some of the areas in Colorado. Sales tax, that came up twice from people that I actually helped move to Colorado, and they had mentioned that the sales tax here is much higher, and so it's definitely something to keep in mind of if you're coming from a state that doesn't have it, and so just be mindful of that as well. 3 people had mentioned the homeless and the camps and how it's spreading out, and the population of homeless is quite large here in Denver, which honestly I'm surprised about because of our winters. And with the homeless camps comes a lot of trash. I drive past an area every day on my way, and finally I saw that the government or the city had brought big trash cans there, or dumpsters, to try to help clean up that trash. And, if it's something that we could as a whole help with, it would be a lot better to try to help these people out. But it exists, and in Denver it is existing in a pretty large faction. Increased crime, we talked about that a little bit. I was interested in this one. This individual said that she misses lush greenery. We're green from spring to fall, but she said that, it's brown most of the time. But another person said that we have the best of all four seasons. And so I've mentioned that in some of my other videos. We really do have the best, and when it gets green, it gets really green and it's really beautiful, and then it dries up again. So just keep in mind that if you're coming from like a state like Florida, we're not green all the time. Let's see, we already talked about the increased crime. Apparently that was mentioned a couple of times. I think I already just said that again. 7 people said the marijuana issue, specifically people smoking while driving and the constant smell of weed. I have also addressed this in previous videos, and I will tell you that you do smell it. It isn't in your face everywhere. I think it's just depending on how hypersensitive you are to that subject, and what your thoughts and your beliefs are on that. So it was mentioned by 7 people, and I did mention that over 80 people had commented on my post, and so 7 out of 80 is a pretty large percentage. So just keep in mind, if that's something that you're sensitive to, you do smell it, but again, it's not in your face. It's not like people are walking down the street smoking a joint or smoking a pipe, but you do smell it. People are in their car smoking pot. I mean, you can smell it when you're driving down the highway for sure. 2 people mentioned metro districts. I had mentioned this in a video before about keep in mind where you're moving to Colorado and is there a metro district, because they can increase prices quite frequently, and your taxes are much higher than in most areas because the infrastructure is built into the taxing. So keep that in mind too. Reach out to me if you're thinking about making a move to any of the area. My neighborhood specifically is districted by a large metro district, and my taxes are extreme. I would say they're extreme. No infrastructure. I believe what this person probably meant was, with all the people moving in here, the infrastructure wasn't built first. And so I think that that's what this person said. I love this one. Somebody said, we have no ocean. Well, we are landlocked, but we do have reservoirs. So check out this one about beach living on Aurora Reservoir in Southeast Aurora. We do have beaches, we have lakes, reservoirs, but we don't have the ocean. So you're right. That is a negative if you're an ocean person. People moving here, another mention of infrastructure. Here's the thing. Colorado natives call people that move here transplants. I don't think it's a pretty word, but it happens. It's widely known. And one of these people said transplants and outsiders. I feel like if you're moving here, you're living here and you're part of us, you're part of our culture. But I'm just sharing what other people said. Keep in mind, this is not necessarily my opinion. I just wanted to see what other people said to share with you before you thought about moving here, so that you could decide for yourself if some of these items are too large for you to make a decision to move here or not. 13 people said politics, plus 4 people said government and the governor, 1 person said corruption, and 1 person said legislature. That's 19 people out of 80. That is a large percentage of people that are really frustrated with the politics in Colorado. I'll tell you, I'm not political at all. I don't get involved in any of that conversation, and so it has not affected me. I feel like, and this again is my opinion, I feel like if you're political, then politics are going to bother you. So if you are a heavily based Republican or a heavily based Democrat, some of the issues may really disturb you in Colorado because it is widely discussed. I mean, I think that this last election, there was probably signs in every state, right? It was a battle this last election. I think that really heightened the sensitivity to politics, but it was really quite surprising that 19 people had mentioned politics. Our governor specifically, people are really upset about how the mask mandate was handled. We were actually one of the most strict states, but we're fully in the clear now. There's no mask mandate. Our numbers have gone down. So things are really turning around with that, but people are really heavily affected by politics. And if you are, then maybe that's something to check into before you move to Colorado. Road conditions. I've mentioned before that we are always in construction season, always. So if you are a person that gets really frustrated by being stuck in traffic, I was stuck in traffic yesterday, 3 different times driving around the city by cones and construction. It happens. What season is it? It's construction season, because we do have so much weather. Our roads get torn up quite a bit. In fact, they're about ready to repave our roads in my own community, just because it does get torn up with all of the moisture that we get over the winter. Snow. I mean, if you're going to move to Colorado, you're going to have snow. We're going to get down to the weather conditions in a little bit. Again, state income tax. I guess some states don't have state income tax. So we talked about, what did we talk about earlier? We talked about, well, I think it goes along the same lines. I don't know. I can't find it on my list. State income tax. I guess some states don't have it. We do. So keep in mind that sales tax. That's what we talked about. Sales tax, state income tax. Just keep in mind that it does exist here. You are taxed at a state level, and I mean, it's definitely not as high as the federal. But if you're not used to having state income taxes, that's something to consider if you're moving here as well. Another person just said taxes in general, and that probably could go along with housing taxes, state taxes, sales taxes. I mean, you're just taxed just about everywhere. Terrible roads, bad signage, crowded and congestion. 10 people had mentioned traffic. We are, again, in a metropolitan area. We have traffic. We have road conditions. We have bad signage. I don't necessarily know what that means. I feel like I can find where I'm going anytime I need to. But if you're sensitive to driving when you come here because you don't really know the area, then maybe that is something that is predominantly a problem for you. I use Waze, W-A-Z-E. It pretty much helps me get wherever I want to go. Here's the thing. Even if I know where I'm going, I often will use Waze because they'll tell me where there's construction and where to avoid. And so it really is quite helpful, and it might be something that you want to download if you don't have it, even in your own city. This one is funny. Again, these are not my opinion, but this one was quite funny. This person stated, "The left lane is for gangster drivers. Stay out of that lane if you're not going to go 10 over." Here's the thing. The left lane is the fast lane. I'm sure it is like that in most states, but the left lane is in the fast lane. We do have road rage here. It can be a really big problem. I had mentioned 8 people, 9 people, 10 people, 12 people had mentioned traffic. Now that I go down my list, it is a problem sometimes. You get blocked, you get locked, you get stuck. Turn on the music. I just told my husband recently when we were stuck at a train. I've mentioned trains a few times. Just think about what you're grateful for. Try to reframe that thought when you're stuck in traffic, because you're going to get stuck in traffic. It's just a thing. Stay in the left lane if you're a Sunday driver. Oh, this other person said limited number of highways and lack of public transit. I think the government is really trying to do a good job with the light rail. They're constantly trying to build and expand it. Our RTD system, our Regional Transportation District, which is our bus, sometimes, I mean, it's not always easy to ride. If you're trying to get somewhere, sometimes you have to get on and plan your schedule and your route and get off in 3 or 4 different times. We are a major driving city, and so keep that in mind if you really are coming from somewhere that has subways and trains and those things that you ride on a daily basis. You may become a permanent driver by moving to Colorado. Bad signage again, so that came up twice. Weather is more warm than cold. I think I disagree. And that's fine. You know, this is everybody's opinion. But I'm not super sensitive to like 55, 60 degree weather. If you're moving from California or Florida, that's really super cold for you. And so that might be something that you are affected by. But if you're moving from anywhere in the Midwestern states and you're used to the cold, we're really not bad. I mean, it's early June. Yesterday it was 85 degrees. It was hot. We'll be warm through September, October. So I think we have a good it's 50-50, you know? And so when we get cold, it is frigid cold. And I mean frigid. We can drop below 0. Somebody said April and May. Those are our wettest months. I mean, it rains, it snows, it's unpredictable. And so if that really bothers you, then you may want to take a look at another state. I would love to help you move to Colorado, but if you're really, really affected by weather and slushy roads and what that affects the roads and the bad roads later for all the construction, then, you know, it's something to maybe discuss and decide if that really is worth moving for. Last but not least, just plain winter. Somebody just said winter. Well, again, you live in Colorado. It's really not that bad. I mean, to me, right? I've lived here my entire life. It's not that bad. Here's a couple things that somebody said in the positive. I like everything about living here. I love that we have 4 seasons and none of them are too extreme. I love that we have a forward-thinking, progressive government. So here's somebody else's opinion on the government. I guess cost of living and housing is what I would have to say, except, of course, I like the fact that my property value keeps going up. Another person said, I love Colorado. I can't think of anything negative. And then lastly, somebody said, I'm a true fan. What I am surprised that somebody did not put on here, and again, I'm not political, I'm not trying to get into any debates with anybody, our gun control and our gun laws. With all of the mass shootings and the shootings in Colorado, I truly am surprised that somebody didn't bring that up in here. But it does happen. It happens in most metropolitan cities. I think for some reason Colorado really has a spotlight on us because of the major shootings that we've had. It's a national problem. I'm not for or against gun control or gun laws. I am not open for a debate on that, but I am saying, just personally, I'm surprised that nobody said that. So there you have it. Lots of reasons why people don't love or don't like living in Colorado. I believe Colorado is a great state to live in. I believe that the luxury of having the 4 seasons and the recreations of every season, there is always something to do in Colorado. There's a few minor complaints here that people can really just ignore if you just turn your eye to it. If you're thinking about making a move to Colorado, I would love to hear from you. Our viewers do call, text, email us when they're moving here, and I would love to help you too if you're thinking about making a move to Colorado. And if you want to discuss any of these further, please reach out to me. My number is 303-668-9949. I'll be happy to talk to you about any of these. Until then, see you next time.